Hello, this is Annika. I'm here from the ÖffiCON team, and I'm really happy to welcome Alan Akula today to the stage. He will do a presentation about his hometown, which is Tallinn in Estonia, and he's recently working for the EU, so we are really interested in Alan Akula and what he's going to tell us today. So welcome, Alan. Nice to have you. I will add you to the street. Now, yeah. All right. Nice to have you here. Maybe you want to say some words about yourself and then start with your presentation.
Hello. I'm very happy to attend the event and to talk on my favorite issue. I must correct a bit the moderator. I never worked for the EU. I used to work quite a long time as a representative of Tallinn to the EU, at the EU. So it was kind of municipal office in Brussels. But since July of last year, I'm not working for municipality, so I can today speak in the quality of, let's say, freelance or previous former spokesman on the free public transport of Tallinn. So I'm not representing EU, never did, but not speaking formally on behalf of the city either. Well, but as a seasoned and experienced speaker on behalf of Tallinn on the free public transport issue, I tell you shortly the story of the Tallinn city and also Estonian counties, which most of them have also free public transport. And afterwards, I tell a little about the pandemic situation, how it affected and affects public transport, and try to elaborate also the future perspectives, which is most intriguing also in your conference discussions. Tallinn Free Public Transport was started in 1st of January 2013, so we are now running 8th year. Pretty long time to make and update the conclusions and to be the kind of role model to others. Tallinn, when started, became the first national capital and also the biggest city in the world, providing free ride to most of its population. We still technically continue to be the biggest city. However, let's say if comparing to the Luxembourg city and the state together, we are not anymore, not necessarily the biggest unit with free public transport. So we were happy in last February, to hand over the title of capital of free public transport to Luxembourg. But Tallinn's case also inspired all around the world, I think, the discussions on free public transport, and we were happy to follow the developments in France, where foremost city of Dunkirk, while transferring to free public transport to all, referred often to the model or experience of the Tallinn. And as well the discussions in Paris, which are ongoing and continuing, particularly now before local elections of next year. Also, the reference to Tallinn is something what you can often hear. And there is a good reason to continue as a reference model, because first of all, people in Tallinn are very happy with free public transport. When local plebiscite was made in 2012, if you would like to have a free public transport for residents, 70% of those participated said yes, they would like to have it. The most recent study indicates the satisfactory rate with free public transport among Tallinners is 90%. So, however, even a big share of the population does not use public transport themselves. The satisfaction with a public transport service and free public transport service is overwhelming. So we are going to have local elections in this autumn in October, and free public transport in the city is even not the issue, which means those who are, let's say, who were always skeptical towards it, they don't raise it as a electional topic because the support to continuing free ride is so dominating. The same cannot be said about the free ride in Estonian counties. Pretty much in the tailwind of Tallinn, Estonian state, national government, decided in 2017 to make free public transport, also to provide free public transport to all, also on the county bus network. And we, across and after the heavy and tough political debates, since beginning of July 2018, most of Estonian counties, 11 out of total 15 counties, bus network was made free for everybody. As from the very beginning, and it continues to be heavily debated, the success is constantly, or let's say, the results are constantly discussed. And as an example, there was 2 weeks ago, it was published a report of Estonian National Auditor's Office, State Control, the report on the free ride in county bus network, which concluded that the policy did not reach its aims, claiming that the no meaningful shift from the car drivers to the bus occurred, and the organization of the public transport in rural network remains to be too weak. And also the free network, free service undermines the commercial rural bus network. So often the rural lines, commercial lines, were closed and replaced by the public service, as a result of which in total the state support, the subsidy for rural public transport also has increased, and in forecasts continues to increase in quick temps. However, as in Tallinn, I would say also in rural areas, while asked from people, of course, all those who are using the service are very happy, but the support for continuing for free ride in most counties also continues to remain high. However, it's not, as I said, it's not as as clear support as it occurs and as we can enjoy in Tallinn. Now about the pandemic situation, how Corona has affected public transport in Tallinn. You see, I hope you can see the figures behind my back, and there are the basic numbers. Upper side of the table is trips, entrances made by passengers in millions. There is a by months February, which is, let's say, the current situation. This year, February, 6 million trips, entrances. And let's say on peacetime, and on last year when there was no lockdown and the pandemic did not reach us yet, let's say the peacetime level is 11-12 million trips per month. Currently, we are on the level of 6 million, which is a half, 50% roughly, which let's say, which is bad, but which is not the worst. The extreme bottom or the contraction of free public transport usage occurred in last year, April, when it was, let's say, our lockdown was not as extreme as it used to be, mostly in Western Europe, also in Germany, but particularly in France and Spain. But let's say there was general fear and panic, and the public transport usage dropped from 13 millions to 2 million entrances. And this 2 million, let's say, contraction about more than 80%, this remains an extreme bottom. Already the recovery started in summer. In May, June, July, already the passenger figures quickly improved. And in September, we already, last year, September, we already saw 9 million passengers. So when the direct threat went away, the people quite quickly returned to the use of public transport. Annual number, if you compare two full years, 2020 and 19, show now, let's say, roughly 40% decline. Total 140 millions, the passenger figure dropped to the 90 millions. Now, which even I would say, compared to many other countries, the contraction is not so bad. There are much harder cases as well. But it's also explained because partly, at least, by the fact that the first wave of the pandemic did not hit us very hard. It was let's say, relatively easy. The second wave is much worse, and at the moment Estonia is on the top with infection rate top of Europe, which does not make us happy, and probably our current numbers are going to be even still worse from the moment. While the passenger figure dropped on annual count 40%, the kilometers what the network or what the fleet made drove through did not decrease, but even a little opposite. There was a slight increase of the service offer. And you see on the bottom there are kilometers. Let's say peacetime average we used to be 33-34 million kilometers, line kilometers, But in this year, only with 2 months, January and February, we saw that there are 6 million kilometers are made, which shows that the progression is that the annual count will be in annual count there will be bigger offer compared to peacetime, which means the buses are visibly half or even less than half empty, or more than half empty, which means the cost of public transport, the offer is increasing, and of course the usage at the same time is in decline. Now, let's say grave situation which we face universally. What is interesting in regard of we also follow and compare the general traffic situation and parallel to the decline in public transport users. I would say even it's a positive development. The car traffic has contracted as well. Not as much as public transport usage, but the car traffic came down as an average across the year between 12 to 15% every month. There was February of last year was contraction was even bigger, but it's not related to the pandemic directly. It coincides with our school holiday and also with National Independence Day. So there was public holidays, but there's an average transport decline on monthly count from 12 to 15%. It's visible. You can see there is a different scene on the streets, which is also interesting was the sharp decline in street paid parking, which fell as an average between 40 and 60% on monthly count. So when the traffic decline is up to 15%, the parking decline occurred was 60%, which indicate also that people, and it's on paid parking area in city center, which indicates the close down and the distant working of the offices, bureaus in the centers of the city, distantly working schools, and of course also all the hospitality sector, restaurants, hotels, events, festivals, sales, campaigns, everything were in, let's say, if not fully closed, but they were in sharp decline. And this particularly, first it hit to the parking. There was no reason to stay for a longer in a city center, and it also brought down the traffic rate, traffic volume. So now those results we can, let's say, on any other time we can describe and should describe as a most favorable. Let's say the contraction of the car traffic. It has been always, let's say, big aim of city designers, city developers, universally, and Tallinn is not exception. But yep, if it came, and it came at the expense of the close down of entire life, and this of course is a regretful situation. So what we can say about the future, how we could prognose and expect the recovery would look like in public transport and in urban development, maybe even more general. Now, first of all, I would conclude that the making the prognosis at the moment remains most untrustworthy. It's not possible at the moment to make a solid prognosis for the future, because the elements of this equation are so indefinable. Now, however, what we can conclude from the recent experience is that people, most of the people and the public transport users do not afraid to return to public transport. The speed of the recovery of the usage from 20%, nearly 80% in last year shows that when the direct threat, panic and fear will go away, most of people return to public transport. Would it be the urgency, the lack of alternative, on whatever reasons, but most people return and in this respect, it's let's say we can be pretty optimistic. So we can't expect that the public transport will lose in big part its ground, and then will have to would be completely reshaped. I think the similar public transport as it existed before the pandemic will continue afterwards as well in majority. We, however, could expect also that the share of the car users, daily commuters with a car, private car, will, however, increase compared to the pre-pandemic level. Because some extent of the fear will continue to affect people, and particularly those who can afford and who have maybe personal health reasons, whatever extra, to be afraid of part of the previous passenger public transport users will shift to private car. So we could expect the traffic volume in a city, in Tallinn, probably it's pretty universal, will increase after the direct pandemic threat will release the economic activities and society will be open. But there are some new developments which continue to affect and impact both the public transport usage and the car usage. Let's say which will affect the commuting, and we should expect the distant working is definitely something which will continue in much higher level what it used to be before, regardless of the pandemic or whatever the future crises. Many companies and self-employed people found and are enjoying the distant working, and it's definitely will relieve the pressure from the total volume of commuting. There is also what we could prognose, at least for the coming 3, 4, 5 years at least. The hospitality sector will not recover anytime soon to the previous levels. International travel will not recover in coming years, and also even the domestic travel will not recover to the previous rates. So it also will, I think, evidently will bring down the commuting level, particularly the car traffic, first of all, but also the public transport usage. And as a result, I would expect, in general, the growth, the fast growth of the metropolises, cities, will the tempo of growth definitely will slower, but in cities, in metropolises with weaker growth rates, the growth may turn to standstill or even to decline. And particularly, it's my hypothesis, of course, only yet, but even Tallinn, which is the only growing metropolitan area in Estonia, may come to the standstill, and even some decline would be not impossible, as country is sparsely populated. We are 1.3 million nation in living on the territory of 45,000 square kilometers, roughly territory of Holland, Netherlands, hosting more than 10 times less people. So you can imagine the temptation for a people, particularly those who are able to work distantly, temptation to move out of the city with its, let's say, pandemic threats, definitely, but also the pollution and all others, the urban problems. I think this, let's say, return or movement out of the cities to the rural areas, starting from the neighborhood of Tallinn, of course, will increase. So, but I would be not surprised if the trend would be seen on global scale as well. The biggest metropolises, at least the growth of the biggest metropolises, may slow down, if not to come to standstill. And it is to say, I think, pretty much regardless of the next developments in the Corona situation. So I think it's pretty much most from my side, and I would be very happy if there would be someone would like to discuss or ask something.
Hello. Yes, thank you very much for this speech. It was really interesting also to hear from other examples. Now we see that there's a question in the chat. I would just read it out loud so that you can maybe reply to it. As far as I know, regional rail transport is not included into fare-free public transport in Estonia. Is this correct? If yes, how is fare-free regional bus transport and regional rail transport being coordinated? Wouldn't Reddit just shift to free bus transport if there's a parallel railway line? Can you maybe respond to this question? Do you have an answer for that?
Yes, let's say in most counties, as I said, only in 11 counties out of total 15, the bus network, which is mostly rural bus network, county bus network, is free to everybody. On remaining 4 counties, the bus network is free to the youth and elderly. Youth is defined up to the age of 20, and the elderly is defined from 62 and above. They enjoy also free ride. But you are right, the commercial bus network, of course, remain to be commercial with tickets, paid tickets. And the public railway also continues to be paid public transport. So train is not free. And yes, it is issue, let's say, the friction between the commercial and the free public bus network, but also the, let's say, another friction is between the public rail network, paid public rail network, and the free public bus network. Efforts have been made with some success, but not sufficient success to harmonize the schedules between the rails, public train, and rural bus to make them function more harmonized way. But it let's say the ticket cost issue remains to be objective. I didn't hear the question full.
All right.
And I can't read it. Maybe it was more specific, which maybe I missed.
Sorry, could you repeat the last sentence? I couldn't hear it.
Now, last was that, yes, the, let's say, conflict between free public bus network and commercial bus network, but also between free public bus network and paid public train network is an objective.
Yes. Thank you very much. We have about 5 more minutes in this slot. Maybe I have one last question. Since you are really into the topic, and especially for us from Bremen, it's really interesting since Tallinn is so much steps forward than we are. So maybe could you give us a small vision, your vision of public transport, fare-free public transport, and especially maybe in Estonia, but also what would you advise us for Germany? What could be our next steps, and what could we maybe learn from your example?
No, as it has been always started and ended, such as occasions, nobody can advise directly to anybody else. Even domestically, it's pretty hard. No, even if you take Tallinn and the second biggest city, Tartu, no, Tallinn's experience does not fit to the Tartu already, and of course it's to the other countries. It's much more complicated because the tax system is different, society is different. No, so there is no direct advice can be given. However, of course, Tallinn has inspired with free ride globally many cities and thinkers. And let's say the main donation from us, including Bremen, I think is that the idea of free public transport is realistic. It has been implemented. It can be implemented at least in the cities of the size of Tallinn. But what we do see, there is already bigger cities are emerging. Already practically, already decided Montpellier, definitely. But there are, let's say in Europe scale, of course, France can be considered as a country number one with free public transport, with the most cases and with most liveliest debate on it, including Paris. But of course, French example does not fit to the German, because foremost because tax system is different. You don't have this public transport tax for companies, and many other elements are different. So, but main benefit also from French different cases is as well that it's possible, and it's worth to find your way. Actually, in Germany, I think you can't say it's empty. There are, I guess, Templin still continues with free ride, and some smaller places as well do have. So you already can refer to some smaller cases in Germany as well. Tübingen has been always very optimistic. I wonder if they have progressed in it, but so the general showing it's not just utopian idea, but it's something that can be implemented. This is the main thing what you can take from us, and what we are happy to show, but not particulars. And let's say if I compared Tallinn to the not all, but most French cases, I regret in Tallinn free ride is only for a residents. In Dunkirk, the current biggest French case, it's free to everybody, and I'm pretty jealous on it. But the explanation is also pretty easy in Tallinn. It's a way how it has been funded. Making it free only for residents, it generated the inflow of the new registered citizens, which increased sufficiently local budget. And basically, this was how it became fiscally viable. In French tax system, it's different story.
Yeah.
But you can't repeat it in Germany.
All right.
In Warsaw, for example, and in some other Polish cities as well, the price difference in public transport for residents, it pretty much is coping Tallinn's case, because the tax system is similar. Municipalities' budget is formed from the personal income tax based on the residency of the population, and in Poland they very closely learned the case, and we can say it has been copied.
Yes. Thank you very much for your speech, for your presentation, and also for some numbers and some examples. Very interesting. We're hoping that after the pandemic crisis, we will just return to a good level of public transport, and even a better one, and more people using it. So thank you very much for your speech, and I hope you still enjoy ÖffiCON, and maybe you can just visit some more of the other speeches and take also part in the program. And yes, thank you very much again, and
thank you, and during my speech,
goodbye to everyone. Do you want to say something? Yes.
During my speech, if you noticed, started the calendarial spring. But if I look from my window, there is a full of snow up to my neck. So. I do congratulate everybody with start of the spring, and hope we will overcome also, as we overcame the winter, we will overcome the pandemic as well.
Okay, thank you much for being here, and hopefully seeing you soon on the next ÖffiCON, maybe in live after the pandemic. All right, goodbye.
Thank you. Bye.